One of the reasons why Kentucky Bluegrass is important for us to work on is because a lot of it is produced here in the inland Northwest. And so it's a major crop, and it has been a larger crop for grass seed producers than now. One of the challenges they have is that when you have a mild winter, then you don't get as much flowering as when you have a cold winter. And the reason is there's a gene called vernalization gene, which gets down-regulated by the cold weather. Spring wheat basically is a mutation in that gene, so that it never is on, and so you can plant it at any time, and after it's grown for a certain amount of time, it will flower. So in Kentucky Bluegrass, what we're trying to do is identify those vernalization genes and look at their levels of expression in exposure to cold. And at the same time, we're looking at plant growth regulators that might be able to bypass that vernalization process. So that's actually what's funded by the Washington Turf Seed Commission. So you can see here that Jumpstart is flowering. And this is actually what we call an inflorescence that's made up of many, many little flowers. And when pollen hits this flower, instead of pollinating the egg, what happens generally is the egg just doubles its genome. It goes from haploid to diploid and becomes a seed that contains all the genetic material of the mother plant, genetically identical to the mother plant. So that's one of the nice things about Kentucky Bluegrass, is that when you have the seed, for the most part, that's identical. Sometimes crosses occur and you get what are called off types, and then you can select for those off types, and maybe you have a new variety that way. Sometimes we will have diversity in a population, and we can then select for specific individuals within that population. This one up here is one of the fastest germinators we have, and we just call it Alaska. So this one was collected on the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska. And so this is something that was wild on the side of the road. There are some Alaskan varieties that people grow, but this doesn't look like those. It doesn't behave the same. Phenotypically, its growth pattern is different. Now this one germinates very quickly. However, it's really hard for us to get it to flower. So this is one that we wanted to do a cross with Jumpstart in order to increase the seed germination, but bring some of these agronomic characteristics that came from Jumpstart into the mix. So in order to be able to do a cross, we've got to figure out how to get them all to flower at the same time. And that may mean staggering them, growing some earlier, growing some later. Each of the grasses we work with has a different mating system. Some of them have to outcross. Some of them don't mind outcrossing or self-pollinating, and some, like teff, which is growing the tall plants in the background here, primarily self-pollinate, and it's hard to actually outcross it. So we have to think about the mating systems as we work with each of the different species. And in some cases, some of these native plants, people don't even really understand the mating systems.